Hi, I'm attorney Kevin Hazlett, and the topic is secrets of police searches. One of the mysteries for citizens is when can police conduct a search and when are they required to have a warrant to conduct a search. One of the tactics that police officers use is they will get citizens to consent to police searches where they do not have probable cause or a warrant. Number one, in most incidences, police officers are either required to have probable cause or a search warrant to conduct a search of you, your car, or your home. One of the secrets that police officers use, or a tactic they employ, is to get the citizen to consent to the search. U.S. Supreme Court, in cases in all jurisdictions, allow police officers to conduct a search if the citizen consents to the search. So this is how the scenario will play out. You will either be approached by a police officer or as a result of a traffic stop, the law enforcement officer will come up to you or your window and say, "You don't have a problem if I look in your car, do you?" This is a question, not a statement. And in most circumstances, the citizen, if you're John Q. Public and you're sitting in your car, and a police officer asks you, "You don't have a problem if I look in your car," you believe that you do not have a choice to say no, and you allow the police officer to search. If you do, any contraband, any items that are illegal, or anything that is found in that search that can be used against you in a criminal charge will be admissible because you consented to that search. Most citizens don't realize that they have the option to say no.
It's a small world. It's a small world. It's a small world. We're living in one small world. It's a small world. It's all one. It's a small world. We're living in one small world. It's a small world.
If law enforcement officers ask to search your vehicle without probable cause or without exigent circumstances or a search warrant, you as a citizen can say no. If you say no, you refuse the consent to search, and they search anyway, at a criminal hearing, your lawyer can file a motion to suppress, indicating to the court there was not a lawful basis for the search and you did not consent. So when law enforcement asks the question, "You don't have a problem if," or "You don't mind if we," this is a question, not a statement, and you as a citizen under the U.S. Constitution, Fourth Amendment, have the ability not to consent to a search and to say no. Another secret or tactic law enforcement officer will use at your home is they will come to your home in what's called routinely a knock and talk, meaning they will come to your home or residence, they'll knock on your door, they either be in uniform or they produce identification, identifying themselves in law enforcement, and say, "Do you mind if we come in and talk with you?" This is a question. They are asking for your consent to come into your home and talk to you about their suspected criminal activity of you, your roommates, or people that have been in the home. You have the legal right to refuse their entry into your home unless they have exigent circumstances, probable cause, or a search warrant. If you allow law enforcement into your home, you have consented to that search, and while they're in your home, if they observe any contraband, for example, if they observe cocaine on a table, that then allows them to conduct a search and perhaps an arrest. So, secrets police use, or tactics that police use to get around not having a search warrant, not having probable cause, not having exigent circumstances, is that the police officer will convey to you a question. That question may seem to you as a statement, but is a question asking your consent to either search your person, your purse, your vehicle, or for your home. You as a citizen of the U.S. have the ability to decline that invitation. If you do not consent to that search, they will be required to have other legal requirements in place in order to justify the admissibility of that evidence at a criminal trial down the road. So remember, you have the ability to say no to the consent of the search. If you say no, that may prohibit law enforcement from conducting a search and may prevent your criminal arrest.
Carlson, Meisner, Hart, and Hazlett, protecting your rights since 1971.
The only way to protect yourself is say, I have nothing to say. When you're interviewed by any state, local, or federal officer, I have nothing to say, because they're not there because they're your buddies. They're out there, they're coming around because they're looking to pin you to the wall for something. And so any type of cooperation, and never lie to them, and never concoct a story, because that's even worse. And you can be charged with a felony. You can get up to 5 years for lying to these officers. And so read through this information very closely and carefully. And the people who follow my advice and follow the advice of many others, I have nothing to say, are never going to be hurt nearly as bad as the people who think they can talk their way out of any situation. Remember, 5 words. I have nothing to say. I get hundreds of letters from people in prisons and jails who had something to say. One of the most famous lawyers in the country years ago, Louis Nizer, a very famous criminal lawyer, wrote a book, and he was asked how many people he defended. He said, I've defended over 500 felons or alleged felons. And he said, well, how many did you get off? He said, I got 499 off. He said, how come you didn't get the 500th one off? And he said, because he talked. It's easy to keep your mouth shut. It should be very simple. And you'll never get hurt for what you don't say.
Want some whiskey and you wanna sugar in your tea? What's all this crazy question they're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't wanna see. Mama told me not to come. Mama told me not to come. That ain't the way that I found out. Open up your window, let some air into this room. I think I'm almost choking from the smell of stale perfume. And that cigarette you're smoking, I'll scare me up to death. Open up the window, sucker, let me catch my breath. Mama told me not to come. Mama told me not to come. That ain't the way to have fun, son. That ain't the way to have fun. She said, oh, yeah.
Now, earlier this month, the California Supreme Court disappointed many civil liberties advocates when it reached a 5-2 decision in People versus Diaz. The police may lawfully search mobile phones on arrested individual persons without first obtaining a search warrant. It's particularly troubling when you think of how much personal information is stored on your phone. In this day and age, it's both your best friend and could be your worst enemy if it gets into the wrong hands. Videos, pictures, emails, text messages, contacts, you name it, all of your communications are in this one little device. So with this ruling, should we just call privacy completely dead? Or are there still a few tricks out there to keep your personal information safe? Well, earlier, I caught up with Ryan Radia, Associate Director of Technology Studies at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. And first, we painted the scenario. Let's say I got pulled over. I got arrested. I had my phone on me. Can cops really just do whatever they want with it?
That's correct. Under the decision 2 weeks ago by the California Supreme Court, along with actually a number of other courts over the last few years, anytime you are arrested by police for any reason, which could include unpaid parking tickets, driving without a seatbelt, reckless driving, the police can take your phone, arrest you, and once you're in custody under arrest behind bars, they can spend hours trying to search through your phone. Anything they find can be used against you in court, can be used for a search warrant.
And that's really scary, because when you think about it, this little tiny thing that I carry around with me, I mean, it holds so much of our personal information these days, right? Every email, every text message, every picture, every video. It's almost kind of scary how much we depend on these little things.
It's incredible how much data we store on our smartphones. Now, the courts have dealt with things like pagers for a while, but those are usually just a couple of phone numbers. The actual initial court decisions that allowed this to happen dealt with things like a cigarette pack. But today we're talking about a cell phone. Really, the cell phone, of the smartphone, like an iPhone, contains your papers and effects of the digital age. The things that you would once store at home, in a locked file cabinet in your desk. You now have your Gmail, your text messages, your images. All this personal information is on your phone, and it's now vulnerable to law enforcement search without a court order, without a warrant at all.
I mean, it's definitely personal information. It's something that I consider private, and it is a catch-22. It's so easy. You can carry it around all the time. But now, at the same time, it's very vulnerable, like you said. But you mentioned a few tricks as to perhaps how you could keep cops from actually getting hands on your phone. So let's say that I'm in my car and they choose to arrest me. What does it mean for the phone to be on my person? If it's on the passenger seat, laying there in the center console, does that count?
Unclear, never really been tested. The technical language is, if it's immediately associated with your person, they can search it. No questions asked. No need for what's called exigent circumstances. But if it's in your immediate control, but not immediately associated with your person, they can't search it. So the precedents on this are a little murky because it's such a new and untested area. But if it's in your luggage, they probably cannot search it unless they have a serious reason to think you're going to destroy data on it. So probably for a seatbelt or a reckless driving arrest, if it's in your console, glove compartment, luggage, they probably can't search it. If it's in your purse, however, next to you, maybe even on the seat, in the seat next to you, or definitely in your pocket, then they can search it. So your goal is to get it basically as far away as you can from your person in some separate object. Whether or not courts
what about my phone case that covers it, right? That's a separate object, no?
It is. Again, it's a really murky legal definition, whether it's in your grabbing space, on your person, separate from you. In fact, if it's in your trunk, it may even have an entirely different standard for search because you can't access it at all inside your car.
Well,
so that's probably the safest place in all.
I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot of stories coming out, about different people that had it somewhere else in their car and, what the cops constituted as on your person or not. But what if I have a password on my phone so you can't just push a button and instantly access all the information? Can the officer actually force you to give them your password?
They can ask you, and they can even lie to you. They can say, if you tell us your password, it's going to help you when we go before the judge. Remember, cops, generally speaking, don't have to tell you the truth. However, then this is important, they cannot force you to hand over your password. They may ask, they may try to persuade you, but if they do force you and you hand it over, then they've gone over the line. However, if you voluntarily disclose it, then that's free reign for them. So I would advise everyone, if you're at all worried about police looking at your phone, whether or not you committed a crime, which you probably don't know even if you have, given how many there are, but you should definitely password protect your phone. It's a great way to keep it safe from police.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I was reading your piece, you said that there's a lot of Americans that are probably saying, hey, I have nothing to hide. Go ahead, search my phone. But you said that a lot of us are probably guilty of committing crimes and we don't even know it. What do you mean by that?
There's so many laws on the books in the United States these days. It's something that's called over-criminalization. Every year, thousands of new offenses are added to the books. A lot of them don't require criminal intent, so you could have no idea you're doing something illegal. And then there are these horror stories that have been compiled by organizations like Heritage Foundation. In fact, former Attorney General Ed Meese, who worked under Reagan, not exactly a bleeding heart liberal, in fact he's a law and order conservative, he's written about this. A girl was arrested on New York City subway for eating a French fry. Arrested. A woman was arrested simply for not filing the right paperwork, a grandmother. So you can be arrested for a whole host of things, for not having the right stamp on a lobster you've imported. It's incredibly easy for the cops to find something you've done that's illegal. Not only that, if they search your phone and they find anything incriminating, such as the guy in California, Diaz, they found a text message that said 6480. That's all it said. The police officer testified that involved a drug deal, 6 pills for $80. That, along with other factors, was enough for a criminal conviction. So it's really hard to know for sure that there's nothing on your phone that might land you behind bars, given how many laws we have.
That is really crazy. So I guess the number one piece of advice that you're giving people is to actually go ahead and encrypt their phones. Isn't that right? That's right. It's really easy to do that with your laptop, which I recommend everybody do because it's so easy. Just Google the phrase TrueCrypt, C-R-Y-P-T. It's a great piece of software that lets you encrypt your laptop. Police cannot break it. It's very robust. Problem is, on phones, you really want that same level of encryption because police can't hack into it. The problem with a password-protected phone that's not encrypted is that there are these tools that police can plug into your phone. In 5 minutes, all the data is off your phone on their computer, and then they have free reign to search it. So encrypting it is the only really surefire way to make sure police can't access it. And as I said earlier, they cannot force you to compel to turn over the key. No matter what they say, you have the right to remain silent. They cannot force you to compel to disclose any information under the Fifth Amendment. So you really want to encrypt your phone. The problem is not a lot of phones actually let you encrypt it. It's not an easy thing. It's not a common feature. As I mentioned, BlackBerry is probably the leader in this field, in large part because corporations, their main customers, really care about security. iPhone's not so easy to encrypt it. Well, that's no good. I think maybe I need to throw out my phone. Well, no, I mean, this is something that might even be coming in front of the Supreme Court at some time, but it's definitely, good for people to know about what they can and cannot do, what they should and shouldn't do. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you. Good to be here.
When I step up on the mic, yo, I heat the booth. Teach the youth, they have the right to seek the truth. Don't believe the media and what they preach to you. Mount arms and revolt's what we need to do. Hit up your local airport if you need the proof. Take a look, can't you see who's policing you? Treacherous soldiers, no posse comitatus. We stepping closer, these Nazis almost got us. They straight take our rights with every terrorist strike. I will not be deceived, I'm prepared for the fight. We got mandatory inoculations for education, incrementalization of military dictation. Read the book of Revelations and awaken to the situation you're facing. It's called globalization. Stand up on your feet, take back this great nation. Stand up to the elite with AKs ablazing.
I never give up my arms, only the dumb down do it. I'm ready for war if it comes down to it. You ain't fighting for freedom? Fuck it, then I'll do it. I ain't finna end up in a modern day Auschwitz. I ain't a terrorist, don't misconstrue it. I'm pro-America, pro-Constitution. All I'm doing is speaking truth. When speaking truth brings persecution, revolution, that's what we need now. Lead pipes and heat now, take it to the streets now. Pack my bags, tell my friends and family, peace out. I'ma head to Washington and hand out some beat downs. You can see by my rhymes, I believe that it's time to hold accountable those committing treasonous crimes. I've seen it coming for years, I can't pretend to be blind. I woke up to find myself behind enemy lines.
I'm a mass militant when I blast killing shit. Uncle Sam, you don't know who your ass dealing with. I'ma spit till I drop, I'ma rhyme till they pop. Bullet holes in my chest, suicide by a cop.
I'm a mass militant when I blast killing shit. Uncle Sam, you don't know who your ass dealing with. I'ma spit till I drop, I'ma rhyme till they pop. Bullet holes in my chest, suicide by a cop.
It isn't safe to be white, and it ain't safe to be black. The government's taking our rights with the Patriot Act. Here soon we'll have to fight and start taking them back. Brothers and sisters, unite and start facing a fact. Use a slave to the grave without the Second Amendment. Do you even have the means to fucking step and defend it? This land is our country, we are sworn to protect it from every enemy, whether they foreign or domestic. Our forefathers died for the rights that we're blessed with. Now we give them a way to keep us safe, that's treacherous. Bush and Cheney, you snakes must have a death wish. March to Washington militant, hang the traitor from Texas. I think that it's best if we stand and unite, stand and we fight. Take a fucking stand for your rights, stand for your life. Revolution's the only solution. Fire back like Chechens battling Vladimir Putin.
I'm praying that it doesn't have to come to the guns, but I got some and I'll pop them if the government comes. I'll be leaving FEMA agents bleeding on the pavement. If it comes to revolution, I'll be loving it, son.
There's a war brewing.
What side you gonna be choosing? Myself, I'm gonna die defending the Constitution. These senators prostituting, they've gone and sold their souls, giving up sovereignty for some globalist control. The NWO, that's the ultimate goal. You can tell your grandchildren that you saw it unfold. Sat back and did nothing while they placed us in shackles, burned down the 3 branches and replaced them with a castle. What
goes around, it comes around, and what goes up, it must come down. I
hear the sound of war drums pounding, thousands of patriots swarming out the mountain.
I'm a mass militant when I blast killing shit. Uncle Sam, you don't know who your ass dealing with. I'ma spit till I drop, I'ma rhyme till they pop. Bullet holes in my chest, suicide by a cop.
I'm a mass militant when I blast killing shit. Uncle Sam, you don't know who your ass dealing with. I'ma spit till I drop, I'ma rhyme till they pop. Bullet holes in my chest, suicide by a cop.
But be warned! There are those who will try to stop our revolution. And to those people, we will show no mercy. Anyone who chooses to attack us had better be prepared to pay with their lives.
Hi there. Welcome to LCL Report. This is Taryn Lupo. Recently, we've been watching a lot of people standing up for their rights and filming police officers when they get pulled over. A lot of the videos I show are people that have filmed it with their cell phones. What I wanted to find out, though, is in Georgia, what are the laws surrounding if I'm allowed to film a police officer, or if I'm allowed to film any public servant, or anyone I want in public? So I decided to go to civil rights attorney Alan Lowe, and Alan Lowe straightened out the details for me. Here's some short answers.
Counselor, can you record without consent in public or private? I mean, what's the difference?
Okay, well, Georgia has a statute that permits a person to record a conversation with another person without the other person's consent, so long as the person who's recording is a party to the conversation. So in other words, I can record a telephone conversation that I have with you without your knowledge or consent, so long as I am a participant in that conversation. Now, as far as videotaping, it is unlawful to videotape another person without that person's consent from a private place. What does that mean? Well, that means that, for example, I can't come into your home and videotape you, obviously, or look into your window from outside, come onto your property. But the law does not address whether you can videotape someone, even a police officer, in a public domain. I would argue that because the statute restricts you from videotaping from a private place, that it does not restrict you from videotaping from a public place, like the streets, common areas, or even an airport.
We also talked for a little while about the case of Stephen Bierfeld. He was the Campaign for Liberty guy that got stopped in the airport and harassed by the TSA, and he recorded it all without the TSA's knowledge on his cell phone. I asked if you could do the same at Atlanta Hartsfield, and after some discussion, it was the same thing. It was a public place. You don't need their consent to record the TSA, and you can even videotape them, but he did warn that you'll probably get roughed up if you tried. So, yes, you can tape it and to protect your civil liberties. After some more lengthy discussion, he basically told me he could not find one case where someone has recorded a police officer from their car. Now, he fully expects that that is not considered a private area, that you're being stopped on a public area. So he believes that you can film a police officer when you get pulled over. Speaking of recording, I wanted to ask him about the case with Sam Dodson, where he was being arrested for filming in a court without the court's permission. And I was curious if you were allowed to film in court in Georgia to see what the comparisons were. Here's his answer.
Counselor Lowe, in Georgia, am I allowed to bring a videotape into a court and take my own trial?
Okay, it depends on what court. First of all, under the federal system, the rule here in the Southern District of Georgia is that cameras in the courtroom are strictly prohibited, and that's by their local rule. In the state system, however, cameras are permitted in the courtroom, but only with the prior consent of the trial judge, so that if someone wants to bring a camera, or if the news media wants to televise a particular trial, then you must file a motion with the trial court. And there are certain regulations that are imposed by local rule. They're called Superior Court rules, Uniform Superior Court rules, where the news media is relegated to a certain area of the courtroom, and of course there are certain rules regulating decorum. It has to be quiet and unobtrusive, things like that. But as far as the public's right to televise or to record, videotape certain court proceedings, in the state system it can be done, but it must be done with prior, by filing a motion and prior consent of the trial court.
If a person wants to challenge the constitutionality of that, they could go in and test those waters, but with warning, I guess. The court necessarily won't respect that. Is that correct?
Well, the constitutionality of regulating the...
Yeah, correct. It's not really a right if you have to ask permission, I mean, to go in and do this. That's why I was asking if it could be challenged.
Well, I guess it could be challenged, but that would run into, it would conflict with the traditional right of the courts to impose their own rules for the regulation of their courtrooms and trials and so forth. By the way, there is a local rule that says that you can't, in the state court system, that says that you cannot videotape the jury. Other than, there is an exception that you can videotape the foreperson of the jury announcing the verdict of the jury. So to your question as to whether or not you can challenge the regulation of videotaping in the courtroom, you can challenge it, but I think it would be very difficult as long as the regulations are reasonable for the fair administration of justice. So I think it would be very difficult to succeed as long as the rules are reasonable and they're being applied reasonably by the trial court.
So that's a little more complicated, and perhaps you're the type of person that would just simply challenge the constitutionality of it, and like Sam did, and try to record anyway. I really appreciate that Mr. Lowe did this, because he's not getting paid for this. He just wanted to help out the community and clarify the law. So I'm going to give him a free plug right now. He seemed like a decent fellow when I talked to him, and if you have any civil right issues that you feel like your liberties are getting trampled, contact his office. I think he would do a good job. This is part one. Part two will address the issue of, do you have to show an ID if asked for one by a police officer? And also, if you get pulled over and you do, can you give consent to a search? Can you not give consent? How do they get a warrantless search? So tune in for part two too. No, it's redundant, isn't it? Anyway, this is Darren Lupo, LZL Report, signing off. As always, good hunting.
A friend of mine got shot and died a couple days ago. So it's been on my mind. What happens at the time of death? And where does the life force go? What is the transformation?
Well, I haven't gone through physical death yet, as the Zen master who was asked about life after death said, "I don't know." And they said, "Why don't you know? You're the master." And he said, "Yeah, but I'm not a dead master." But I've gone very deeply to what one could call death to identification with form. So in a way I have gone into that realm from where I can say and know that ultimately what we see as death is the dissolution of form, that the eternal in us, which I know that firsthand, cannot be touched by that. So what exactly happens, I would say, depends on whatever state of consciousness you were in. That was your predominant state of consciousness in this lifetime. If in this lifetime you were continuously identified with form, your body, or the psychological form of me, that means consciousness, this expression of consciousness, was still in a somewhat dreamlike state, which is identification with form. And you can easily extrapolate from that if the tendency of consciousness to identify with form was still there, which in other ways the awakening had not happened. This tendency will continue, there will be further identification with form, and the process will continue as the consciousness that is not yet fully awake will continue to identify with form again, and then gradually come to a place where awakening happens. Or if there has already been a disidentification from form in this lifetime, then you can extrapolate from there that the compulsive urge to identify with form and to seek another form or another cycle of form identification, this compulsion to seek further experiences through identifying with form, then would either be much weaker or be completely absent, in which case the consciousness that you are is no longer bound to this realm and will not seek to re-experience the realm of form. But in either case, you really, I can tell you that all is well. It does not really matter whether this person now needs further experiences of identification, in which case this will happen, or whether he's already free of this urge, in which case he will move on and live in a realm that we can't even conceive of from where we are here. I get a sense deep within in the forms of what that is, but we don't need to talk about it here. All we know is nothing. This is the beginning of A Course in Miracles, which is the entire Course in Miracles summarized in 2 lines. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That which is real in him is beyond form. Anybody can know that when you see a dead body, you realize that this is no longer whom you knew. This is not the being that you knew. This is only a shell. So nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal ultimately exists. This is why sages from all traditions speak of this realm of form as ultimately illusory. It depends what level you look at. The important thing is all is well. beyond the appearance on the level of form, which is the only level where death exists. It is the transition from one form into another form, or from one form into formlessness. That is what death is, no more than that. Nothing real dies. Nothing real dies. Which is to say, ultimately, there is no such thing as death. There only seems to be. It's a transmutation of form. Either form dissolves or seeks some other form, some other identification with form. That, for you, of course, to go into stillness in the face of death, to go into stillness is important, to become still within yourself, especially when you are sitting with somebody who is going through the death process, or you are confronted with somebody who has just died next to you, whatever. To be with that, immediately close your eyes, go into the deep stillness where you realize who you are. And once you realize who you are, which is formless consciousness, then you realize also that nothing real died. Nothing real died, which is to say, ultimately there is no death. It does not mean that you can't feel sad. You can allow yourself to feel tears and to feel sad, and at the same time realize that nothing real died. That happened to me when my parents died 2 years ago within the space of 6 months, both of them. So to be confronted with the death of a loved one in a short period of time. Yes, there were tears and there was sadness, and at the same time there was the realization that ultimately there is no death, and who they were in their essence has not been destroyed. Just as I know that I in my essence cannot be destroyed. And so that comes from that. It comes from self-realization or self-knowledge, the realization that the other also is beyond death. That's so you can have the coexistence of, yes, on this level, there is a place for sadness and mourning and tears. If it happens, it comes in waves. You may have noticed usually if somebody close to you dies, the sadness comes in waves at you, and then you cry, and then it leaves you, and then comes another wave. And even when the wave comes, there can be an undercurrent of peace. So you're not totally in that emotion, you're not totally consumed by it. It exists there in your own spaciousness. And the spaciousness underneath the emotion is the peace. And it's only from that inner peace that you can realize the truth behind death.
I stood in this unsheltered place till I could see the face behind the face. All that I've gone before left no trace. Down by the roadside in a secret world we were colliding. All the places we were hiding, love.
wing on a prayer. In this state of disrepair, down by the railway siding, in our secret world we were colliding. In all the places we were hiding, love. What was it we were thinking of?
Hi, welcome to LCL Report. This is Taryn Lupo reporting. This is part 2 in a series of clarifications of some laws. I went to Georgia attorney Alan Lowe, who's a civil rights attorney, to have him straighten out a couple things. This next law we're going to be talking about is the situation that just happened with the motorhome diary fellas. Do you have to show an ID to a police officer? When do you have to show an ID? If you don't know what happened, these three guys were liberty activists. They go around basically in a motorhome around the country. They get pulled over in Mississippi because they have a temporary tag. The cop checks the tag, everything comes back fine, and he's got the driver out. He says, I want to see the other two people. After everything's been checked out fine. The other two people come out, and he asks one of them for an ID. The person says, why do you need my ID? I'm just a passenger, and we've checked out. He says, I want to see your ID. And he goes, what probable cause do you have? Next thing you know, the cop gets ticked off, puts him in a chokehold, maces him in the face, and stuffs him in the cop car, and they go, and all three get arrested. So, I want to find out, because there's this misconception, I think, and this unclarification of, do you have to give an ID if a cop asks for one? Everybody seems to think you have to. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to let Alan Lowe answer it.
All right, Counselor Lowe, do I have to produce an ID if I am not driving a vehicle, or if a police officer requests it and I'm a passenger, or there's no probable cause?
Well, if there's no probable cause, then the law enforcement officer does not have the right to stop you because of the Fourth Amendment. There has to be probable cause that a crime has been committed, or a crime is in the process of being committed, before a law enforcement officer can stop you. So whether you're driving in a car or walking down the street, if there's no probable cause, then the law enforcement officer, then it's illegal for that person to stop you.
Do you actually have to produce an ID if you're not operating a vehicle or if you're a passenger?
Generally, no. Now, there are situations where there are authorized roadblocks if they're looking for a criminal, where they're stopping everyone, but they can't single you out individually because they don't like the way you look. Okay, if there's a roadblock, then they have to stop everybody.
I think the main gist here is probable cause. If an officer has probable cause, you will produce an ID. But if he doesn't, like you get pulled over and you ask an officer, why am I being pulled over? And he doesn't give you a reason. You say, what probable cause do you have? And he hasn't figured out what to give you yet. Then you don't have to produce an ID. Or if you're a passenger, you don't have to produce an ID. Or if you're walking down the street and there's no probable cause, you don't have to produce IDs. You do not have to cooperate with the police. Now, understand in real life that this is really going to irritate a cop, and they're probably going to get very angry with you and do whatever they want anyway. They have this system where a lot of times they won't give you a reason until after they search a car and look around and you've been stuffed in a cop car, and then you pull it out of the station and then they come up with a reason why they arrested you. So, you know, that's a real breach of your rights to come up with a reason after the fact. Hopefully you've got everything on film. If you watch the first part, you should be filming any encounter you have to protect your rights. Now the second part of this is going to be, if you do get pulled over and you do not want the police to search your car, what rights do you have? Can you refuse to consent to a search? And when are they allowed warrantless searches?
Counselor, can you refuse consent to have your car searched here in Georgia if I'm pulled over at a traffic stop? And explain to me what, how they justify warrantless searches.
Okay, well, it goes back to the Fourth Amendment. First of all, there has to be probable cause to stop a vehicle, for example, and to search that vehicle pursuant to the probable cause. The police can't just stop you and search your vehicle without any cause whatsoever. The Fourth Amendment requires two things. It requires that there be probable cause to conduct a search, and it also requires that the police officer obtain a search warrant. The courts have carved out well-recognized exceptions to the requirement of a warrant. First of all, if there are so-called exigent circumstances, meaning that if the officer observes someone who is acting suspiciously or in the process of committing a crime, or who has committed a crime and is leaving the scene, or the officer reasonably believes that that person has committed a crime, then the officer is entitled to stop and search the person incident to the lawful arrest. The other well-recognized exception is the automobile exception. And the courts say that because the person who is the subject of the search can easily remove the evidence and flee the arresting officer, that the officer does not have sufficient time to go and seek a search warrant, then the officer may search the vehicle, but only pursuant to probable cause. If the officer doesn't have probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed or a traffic violation has been committed, then the officer doesn't have the right to stop you in the first place.
So if an officer pulls me over and I say, "Why are you pulling me over?" and he just won't give me a straight answer and then wants to search my vehicle, does he have to give me a reason before he can start searching? Or can he just make one up afterward?
Well, he must have a reason, whether he, and legally he should give you the reason why he's stopping you. But the question is, do you have the right to refuse the consent to search the vehicle? You do not have the right to refuse consent if there is probable cause that you've committed a crime, or that you're fleeing from a crime, or that you're a material witness to a crime that has just taken place.
So you can refuse consent. You need to be very clear about it. Make sure you get it on tape. You know, you do not consent to a search, and if they do it anyway without good probable cause, it'll get thrown out later, hopefully. But one thing you really need to do is live stream video. What I mean by that is if you have a cell phone, any sort of smartphone, you can load a program called Quick, Q-I-K, and whatever you record on this cell phone goes live out to the internet. Because with the Motorhome Diary guys, they had it on a regular camera, and the police, of course, recorded and deleted whatever was on that camera before they ever got it back. If you use Quick, you can't delete it. It goes to the internet, and a cop can't destroy the evidence. So make sure you do that. Also, I want to give Alan Lowe a plug because he did this for free. And if you have any civil rights issues, he seems like a very decent fellow when I talk to him. I'd call him up if I get in trouble. I'm sure I will. So, anyway, this is Jared Lupo with LCL Report signing off. As always, good hunting.
Fair use notice. This site contains copyrighted material, the use of which has not been authorized by the copyright owner. We are making such material available in our efforts to advance understanding of environmental, political, human rights, economic democracy, scientific, and social justice issues, etc. We believe this constitutes a fair use of any such copyright material as provided for in Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Law. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, the material is distributed without profit to those who have expressed a prior interest in receiving the included information for research and educational purposes.